Hello, this is a throwaway video talking about the champion reworks of League of Legends. I just watched G-Bay's video on Certainly T, and he was talking about new characters that he'd created as well as old reworks he'd done, and it got me thinking that I had a lot of opinions on the reworks of all the champions in League of Legends. Um, this is my subjective opinion. I'm not going to be using a whole lot of like factual basis to back up why I think about these reworks, but I will have some insight on specific champions that I've played a lot and champions that I like to play before and don't like to play now, or vice versa. So we're going to start. Some of these are not, I'm just using this list. Some of these are just visual updates, and I won't comment on those, but some of them are actual gameplay updates. Um, and some of these champions I might not actually remember what it was like to play them before, but we'll see. So Kale, um, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this one's pretty bad. She Before she had an interesting sort of play style where you had to activate your E to get ranged auto attacks. Now, especially in the current patch in the preseason, she's just blatantly overpowered. She doesn't lose lane, which was her like one saving grace before the preseason, that you could beat her early and then she wouldn't have a chance to scale. And then if she gets the late game, she's an unstoppable monster as it was before. Um, Before when you played her, she had an okay laning phase and she scaled okay until late game. She was almost like a mage AD carry when your E got a short enough cooldown, and I thought that was a fun play style. Also, the invulnerability on the ult is it's fine. I mean, invulnerability abilities are really annoying, but hers it's on an ultimate, so it wasn't ever really a problem. You knew how to play around it. As far as the other abilities go, her Q is basically the same. It's a skill shot now as opposed to point and click, which I guess is fine. And I think the W still heals, although I haven't played a whole lot of new Kale. Mordekaiser, although a lot of people really like to complain about him, um, he his the thought process behind his ult is actually really a cool one, which is that you force somebody into a 1v1 with you, which is just like the most badass top lane alpha thing you can do. Um, so I really like that concept. In his implementation, he's a little bit frustrating to play against. I think they kept his the whole juggernaut idea, sort of. They didn't like. I don't think they ruined that with the update. The ability to pull people into you and slam down on them is fun. I did prefer Mordekaiser before his rework because I really liked his 1v2 potential, not just by sucking somebody into the shadow realm or whatever you do, but also by fighting them 2-on-1 and just using your insane amount of spell vamp that you could get and the shields that you get from your abilities um, to win the 1v2. I thought that was really fun and really cool, and I think he's sort of like there. I wish the champion filled that niche again. I don't mind the new rework, but I like the old Mordekaiser as well. Rise, there's really nothing to say about him. He's going to get reworked again. I haven't liked any of his iterations, so yeah, just not a character I'm a fan of. Sona, I think this is a case where they got the rework right. They didn't change her identity at all. They made very minor changes to her kit, and she was more fun to play afterwards. I really enjoy playing Sona, but I'm a person who enjoys playing simple champions. Alistar, he's fine now. I liked him a little bit better before. I liked his ability to mid lane when he had control over when he healed, and I think his E currently where he like makes a circular ripple on the ground and it charges up his chain, and after like 4 or 5 links he can stun you with an auto attack. I think it's a little bit clunky and hard to like use. You have to stay on him for a while. It puts you at risk in the team fight. I guess it does synergize well with his ultimate, but I don't know. I don't that ability it doesn't do enough to sort of swap places with that heal for me. And also, I preferred playing mid lane Alistar before, and top lane when you could W and then your auto would follow the W automatically, so you could get poke in. I could understand why that's frustrating for people to play against, but I thought Alistar was a much more fun solo laner than he ever was a support. Fiddlesticks, thematically, his rework is amazing. I really like what they did with the Scarecrow. I think the animations he has are really cool. The whole ward dynamic, like where he doesn't have a ward or a sweeper, he has a kind of a hybrid of both. That's kind of better and worse in some cases. Is really neat. Um, I think they kept his identity down pretty well. I don't have a strong opinion on the Fiddlesticks rework, except for that he looks cooler now. I thought he was fine before too. The bouncing crow was cool harass, I think, but they kept that a strong harassing option with his silencing rake now. I don't know what the abilities are. Gangplank, mm, he's fine. I think for people who like that style of champion play, he's good. Um, Before his E was a much less dynamic and fun ability, so yeah, I never really enjoyed playing Gangplank either way, but I think his rework was ultimately a success. It did make him a little bit OP, so harder to balance, but if you're talking about fun gameplay, he's probably more fun now. Janna, I think as it says right here, is just a visual update. I don't recall anything major ever being changed about her. We already did Kale, Tryndamere. They just took away his AP ratios, as far as I know, which is a bad change, or they lowered it. I think I always like diversity when you can play champions multiple different ways, and when they take it out, I think it's a sad loss for the game. Talked about Gangplank. Sivir, I'm trying to think of Sivir beforehand. Oh, before her W was a toggle. Um, I think that was interesting. I don't particularly like or dislike Sivir's change now. I think she very minorly got changed. Yeah, nothing really much to say about her. I think she's fine either way. Jax. Uh, this is a rework that needed to happen before. If for those of you who haven't been playing since he was released, there was a mechanic in the game called dodge, and um, it basically is what it sounds like, where you have a percentage chance where auto attacks will just straight up miss you. And Jax's abilities all sort of revolved around this idea that he would dodge attacks with the dodge set. So it was actually viable on Jax to buy multiple pairs of Ninja Tabis because those were the one of the only items that gave the dodge stat. So I think, yeah, them reworking him was necessary. He's fun to play. I like to play Jax. Yeah, no complaints with that rework. Ashe, they basically changed nothing. I think it was like as they're saying, just a visual update. Oh, her Q is a little bit different. Her slow became a passive, and her Q became like the three-shot arrow thing. Yeah, she's fine. I think it's ultimately better than before. Um, Evelyn, a lot of people like new Evelyn, and she certainly is strong, but I'm not really a fan. I liked the old Evelyn because I really like this idea of the spell spamming mage jungler, and I think they sort of got rid of that a little bit, where you have to like use your Q um, to proc the charm, and then it has a few castings left on it, and then you have to wait for it to go on cooldown. I like just the 1 second cooldown Q ability that she had before. I also liked her invisibility mechanics more, especially when she was first released. I'm kind of sad that they took out those just like perma stealth characters that could use an ability to gain stealth for like 30 seconds and gank a lane. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that playstyle, but I also have nostalgia for those old days of League. Twitch, same thing as Evelyn. He had the same mechanic. He's definitely a better, more well-rounded champion now. But I had a friend who mained Twitch, and he just loved the assassin playstyle you used to be able to do with him, and I think that's kind of sorely missing from the game. Um, but his rework as an AD carry is fine. I don't really play AD carry much as a role, uh, so I don't have a strong opinion on it. But I don't. Whenever I see a Twitch or I'm playing with a Twitch, I'm never like, ugh, that champion's so lame. So he's fine. Um, Xin Zhao, I liked him better before because I liked AP Xin Zhao. I thought that was a fun build. I don't, his ultimate now is kind of interesting where he like throws everybody away except for one person. So like it's the 1v1 me guy sort of attitude. Uh, but it's kind of just, it's not too effective. They just come right back in and fight you. Nothing more to say about him. I'm going to go quickly through these champions in the interest of time. Katarina, great. I love Katarina's rework. Very interesting. The idea of leaving the daggers on the ground to Shenpo to them is very fun. She still has the same weaknesses she had before, but now she's just got a little bit more of dynamacy. I don't know if that's a word, but her kit is more dynamic now. Um, yeah, that's a positive rework. Garen, he was fine before, he's fine now, and after the Juggernaut patch, he was a little OP, so they nerfed him. I've always liked to play Garen. I'm a top laner and a jungler, so he's fun. I don't know. I like his playstyle. Going in, silencing, pressing the E. It's very simple. It's if you just want to turn your brain off, it's fine. Soraka, this is a rework that made the champion fundamentally less fun to play. used to be able to play her in solo lanes, which a lot of people argue wasn't healthy for the game, and I could see why. But I really did like that build. I really did like playing that type of style where you could go and you could repetitively queue the star call. My favorite types of mages to play back in the day were the spam mages, and that's what Soraka was. And I was one of the people before they were innovating her doing that in the LCS. I was just doing it in my normal games, in my solo queue games, having fun, building sort of tanky AP with like a Frozen Heart to get a lot of CDR, and then Rylai's to slow them perpetually with my Q. I thought that was a really fun playstyle. I'm really sad they removed it. I know a lot of Soraka players now, and they say she's fine to play as a support because they're primarily support players, but that's not how I like to play her, and it's sad to see her go. One thing you'll notice from me when I'm talking about these champion reworks is if they removed a playstyle from the champion that the champion previously had, I don't like it. Twisted Fate, I don't think he's been changed much. I'm pretty sure he's the same champion he's always been. Nidalee, I wish they would buff her bruiser aspect a little bit more. Her rework was fine. The long range spears were really fun if you were playing as her, not so much if you were playing against her. It just turned into a game of dodge the skill shot once you being sieged mid or vice versa. Um, so I mean, she was fine before. I think I thought it was fun to play as her at least, but when they reworked her, she was a really fun top laner, and I thought that was her best play style, where she had the Triforce. You could chase people down, you would hit them with the spear, chase them down in Cougar form. You could auto attack, harass them. She kind of became like a Gnar in a sense, but without as much CC and more damage. Um, when they removed that, and they put her back in the jungle, so she couldn't top lane anymore. I think she's just like a less fun version of what she was before. So I'd like to see them buff her AD ratio, her base AD ratio on her autos a little bit, and that can make the rework successful. Annie, they've hardly done anything to her, so I'm not going to comment on that one. She's fine. Karma, I liked old Karma and I like new Karma. It's fine. Sometimes with some of these cases, when I like the old champion, I do wish they would bring it back, like they would keep it in the game. I would rather than reworking characters, I'd rather them just bring in the new character with their kit because Karma fundamentally changed. Her kit's entirely different than it was before. The only similarity is that she has heavy shields and that the mantra aspect is still a thing. But that's all I'm gonna say about her. Sejuani, um, I thought the AoE ult was really fun with her when you could clump a whole bunch of people together and get them all stunned. I liked her better before the rework. That's all I'm going to say about that. Trundle, they basically changed nothing. He was fun to play before. He's fine to play now. Um, Master Yi. Oh, I liked him much, much better before when you could play him AP. That was a fun play style. I like to take him mid lane. Now he just seems like he's either unstoppable if you have a bad team, or if your team is able to CC him, he's garbage. Especially if you can shut him down early games. So I don't know. I think his playstyle is there's a niche for it, but I don't like playing against E because it's either he gets stomped or he stomps my entire team, and that's never really fun. I like the close games. I already talked about Garen. Olaf. They didn't really change too much about Olaf as far as I can remember, so I'm not going to talk about him. Rammus, once again, not changed. Sever already talked about. Heimerdinger. Heimerdinger is one of the worst reworks they've ever done. Old Heimerdinger had a really fun mechanic with his W, where you could, for those of you who didn't know, it would shoot out 3 rockets, and it would hit the 3 nearest targets, and if one of those targets was a champion, um, the rockets would hit him. If nothing else is in range, all 3 would attack one. Um, and they would deal less damage like per rocket if more rockets hit them. So you couldn't just like nuke somebody with your W, but so it became the strategy to harass with 2 rockets CSing and 1 rocket hitting the player, which is always fun when you can CS and harass at the same time. And that made his laning really fun. His ult prior wasn't it didn't buff an ability like it does now. Instead, it made his turrets slow or slow more, like it gave them sort of like a frost passive on them, and I think it made them deal more damage. I like that. I think you could argue that his kit is a little more fun to use now if you like the whole rocket blast skill shot or bouncing grenade or the big ass turret. But before, the W was just such a better, more healthy ability for the game, more fun to use and more just it felt better to use in lane. It made him feel like a viable laner. So yeah, I think this rework is ultimately a failure, and I don't like to play the champion as much anymore. Nasus, not really much has changed about him. His abilities have stayed the same. They did buff his Q a little bit. They did change the way his ult interacts with his W a little bit. Um, I think anytime you buff Nasus, it's good. I like to play him, and I think he's never been like a staple of competitive play, or very rarely has been that. Anivia, it was mostly just visual updates. I think they were fine. Skarner, the Crystal Spire is kind of a unique idea. He didn't change in any meaningful way. I don't think his playstyle is always just going to be run in and ult somebody back into to your team. So I think his update, his overhaul was fine. Zerath, don't honestly remember Zerath before the rework. I already talked about Heimerdinger. Kassadin, I think really all they've done is take the silence off of his Q. That's fine. I think it's probably pretty annoying to get silenced by a character who's not supposed to beat you in lane. Gragas, he was fine before the update. He was very fun to play in the mid lane. I think I probably preferred that style more to the jungle style you're supposed to use now, but he's also fine now. I do think jungle Gragas is fun. I did really like the mid lane burst Gragas, and I think we got to see some fun professional players do it, like back in the day when Skara would play that, but I think he's fine now. Rengar's a character I didn't like before or after the update. I think before the update, the rework, that they have now reverted, so that this is the original Rengar that you're playing on League of Legends today. But so this version of Rengar, he goes in, he kills you or one of your teammates, and then he dies, which is just a 1-for-1 trade. So it's annoying if you're the person getting bursted, but for the rest of your team, it's just kind of like whatever. And then but after the rework, he couldn't do that as effectively, and he became more of like a fighter. So he could deal more with the team and you better team fight better, but he was really clunky and not as fun to play. So yeah, I don't like him either way. I already talked about Twitch. Karthus, very little has changed with Karthus. It's just sort of like, I think, visual updates, like it says. Okay, right. Already talked about Nidalee. Already talked about Skarner, Sona, Cassiopeia. I think she's in a good spot. She's one of the spam mages that I don't actually enjoy playing. But I think she's fine. She's fine to play against. She's fine to play as. The whole no boots thing is kind of a fun idea. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about her. Not experienced enough. Victor, don't play him. Don't have an opinion. He seems fine. I like with all the changes they've ever done to him, he's basically the same identity as a champion as he ever was. Sion, now we're getting into one of my favorite updates. I did like old Sion, but I like new Sion even more. When he was initially released, I was one of the people to start with the Emacs, and I'd start Doran's Ring because you needed the extra mana for the harass. I was really sad when they nerfed it, but I understood why they did. It was too OP. But yeah, he's very fun. His kit feels really natural to use. You hit the E to slow them. You charge up the Q while they're slowed. You pop the W in the midst of all that. You then ult them to re-CC them. Then you have hopefully your cooldowns come back up again. He's full tank. He is minorly skill expressive with lots of skill shots and charge skill shots and knowing when to time stuff. I think the rework was a success. He's also just a badass. That ultimate is kind of a fun ability to use. That's all I'm going to say about that. Singed hardly changed. Not going to talk about him. Maokai, he's fine. They only changed really his ultimate. The old ultimate was fine. The new ultimate's fine. He's a fine character. I already talked about Alistar. Tristana, I wish you could play her AP again. I think that was more fun. Zillion, I don't really remember him before the update. I don't think his bomb was a skill shot. I think he just put it on people, but I don't think it's stunned. I think he's fine now. Vigar, his cage now has a delay. His Q is now a skill shot. I think his ultimate is a little bit different. I think his ultimate now is an execute rather than scaling with the amount of AP they have. He's fine. I think the rework was healthy. I already talked about Kassadin. Morgana's not changed too much. I already talked about Rise. I already talked about Ashe. Gangplank. MF. I don't remember too much about old MF, but I'm pretty sure she was very similar. I think this was just kind of minorly tweaking her abilities. She's fine. I think my one problem with her probably is the same problem I have with Lucian, is that when you're really an 80 carry, the ultimates that they have don't necessarily deal a lot more damage than just straight up auto attacking. It just lets them damage from a safer distance, which is just kind of it's not as it doesn't feel good to just have an ability that lets you be safer as opposed to something that, actually would put out more DPS than you could just by auto attacking when you're full build. But that's not really a problem with the update. That's a problem with the champions in general. Fiora, this is a good update. Her character was bad beforehand. Now she's very interesting to watch play, at least. Darius, I've hated him always. I'll still hate him. He still fulfills the same role. I don't like what that. He cannot even be that fed and basically 1v3 a whole bunch of people if he gets a good heal off on his Q. It's hard to counterplay that. I know that, I'm probably just a bad player saying this, and all of you, like, challenger tier players are going to be like, yeah, but he's easy to counter, though. It's frustrating for me. Already talked about Garen, Mordekaiser, Skarner. Caitlyn, they hardly changed her. She's fine. Corki, I think his package system is a lot of fun. I think I think the way they've changed Corki is probably good overall. I don't have any complaints about him. I would say it's a positive rework. Graves, mm, he's either really strong in the jungle, one of the top picks, or he's not relevant at all. I think beforehand, I really liked his ability to reset his dash cooldown with the auto attack. Like every time you'd auto something, it would take seconds off your dash, and that allowed for a really fun kitey playstyle. I think he's kind of sorely missing that right now. He's more of a bursty playstyle, which is interesting. Um, so I don't really play him, so I'm not going to comment on whether it's positive or negative as a whole. But I did like previous Graves more. Kog'Maw, I don't really remember what they've changed about him, but I do like the way current Kog'Maw plays. Oh, they did take a lot of AP ratios off of his abilities, and I preferred to play him AP a lot more. I liked AP Kog'Maw as a mid laner. I still do. I still think it's fun. I think he was much better before and actually a viable mid lane pick for competitive play, and I think he was slept on for a long time. And now I think it's a little too late that they took down his ratios. I already talked about Misfortune. Quinn, um, I like both iterations of Quinn. She's frustrating to play against in either way. I thought it was a little cool when she turned into a bird. I thought that was a more fun animation than the one currently is. I think overall I probably liked the original Quinn a little bit better. I played her more, but the new one's fine. Poppy, I enjoyed playing before and after her rework. I think right now she feels really good to play with a lot of CC and a good amount of damage. She still feels skill expressive. Um, Before it was really fun to just either target the person with your ultimate that you wanted to kill or target the tank and then you could just go in and wreak havoc on the team and they couldn't do anything to you. Um, so I think both of her playstyles were good. She's one of the characters I would have liked to see not get taken out of the game, but rather just have a character put in her place that does the same thing. Maybe an option to play Legacy Poppy. Um, Shen, I liked old Shen. New Shen is fine. They really just changed his Q ability and his W ability. They're both, I think both iterations are fun to play. Tarek, I liked old Tarek more, but that doesn't mean that new Tarek's bad for the game. I think he's fine. Brand is really annoying to play against. I don't think he's really got updated too much. Now his ult bounces to himself. I honestly, he's very frustrating to play against in any lane you do because you can't, there's no counterplay. You can't stand near your minions to dodge stuff because he'll just do the thing that spreads fire around to you. And you can't stand away from your minions unless you risk getting stunned. So I think he's probably pretty frustrating. And I don't like him either way. I already talked about Cass. Malzahar, I don't really think he's received a meaningful update as far as I can remember. Oh, it was his voidlings. Something to do with his voidlings. They're not a passive anymore. You spawn them, and you don't put the puddle underneath them when their ultimate isn't your W anymore. He's the same character. There's nothing to say about him. Same with Vel'Koz. Vladimir, his update was good. I don't like playing against him. I don't like playing as him, but I think he looks more dynamic now. So that's all I'll say about that. Zyra, basically, she got her abilities changed quite a bit, but her identity as a character didn't change, so I don't have an opinion on her. Yorick was always annoying to play against now and before. Yeah, he still has the same weaknesses he used to have. If you can actually dodge his stuff and get on him and chase him down, he's not really that strong. But if he duels you with his ultimate out now, it's pretty tough to win. Or you talked about Katarina. LeBlanc, she went through a rework and then they reverted her back. I like the revert. I like the original LeBlanc. I used to be good with her back before people starting to get really good with her, and figure out how to play against her. And always thought she was a sleeper OP, and that came out to be true. And then everybody learned how to play her, and now I'm kind of a trash LeBlanc compared to them. Um, Rengar, talked about him. Talon, the hopping over wall thing is stupid. It's frustrating to play against. I've never played as him, so I don't have an opinion there. So take my thoughts with a grain of salt. But I I liked him better before. Shyvana, I don't remember her really being updated in a meaningful way. I think her E got like an AoE aspect at the end of it rather than being like a cone when she's in dragon form. That's fun because now AP Shyvana is a thing, and as I've said, I like it when characters can be played a different way. Um, but I like AD Shyvana too, or just tank Shyvana. I play this character all the time, in both ways. Warwick, he needed a rework. The rework's fine. Galio, I liked Galio old and Galio new. Um, Old Galio didn't really fulfill any niche. New Galio does. I guess it's a good rework. Talked about Maokai, talked about Sedge. I liked old Zac better. I thought his W was, spammable ability where you could pick up your blobs very frequently. The slamming people together with the Q is kind of a novel idea, but it feels a little clunky to use. But I don't think there's anything wrong with new Zac. I just think I liked old Zac better. Sorry. Urgot. Old Urgot was way more fun to play. The when you had to land your E on them to get multiple Q procs and chase them down with the Q proc, that was a really fun ability interaction. His ultimate really wasn't that good because you wanted to build him damagey, and so changing places with an enemy puts you right in the middle of their whole team. So I think his ultimate was a bad ability, but the rest of his kit was way more fun to use than current Urgot. I already talked about Xin Zhao, Evelyn. Oh, Swain. Swain, very good rework. They kept his identity. He's still he's still fun to play with or play as, and he's interesting to play against. He makes you think about the game in a different way because his skill shot is fundamentally different than every other skill shot. I have a friend who really likes to play Swain. It's very fun to play with him as Swain support in the bot lane. Um, yeah, no, Swain's an interesting rework. I'm glad they did it. Cho'Gath, they changed his ultimate to stack indefinitely. That was good. I like that change. I play Cho'Gath. Preseason Cho'Gath is pretty bad because the only way to viably play Cho'Gath before, in my opinion, was with the Glacial Augment and GLP and Twin Shadows, and both those items are removed from the game. And the sort of the new Everfrost or whatever it's called is not nearly as effective as the GLP because it doesn't have the same amount of range. Uh, okay, Aurelia. Um, I liked her better before. I haven't played too much of her after because she's kind of hard and has a learning curve. Um, I don't know. I really liked her E ability where you could stun them if they had more health than you. Her ult was definitely boring before, so I think that definitely needed to be changed. But yeah, the Q executing minions and being able to use it over and over again, that's fine. I think her W is a little bit interesting. I don't really like it now, where you stand still and you block damage and you reflect some of it back in a direction. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on Aurelia, and I feel like she requires a lot of play to get good at. So again, taking my opinion with a grain of salt. Aatrox, new Aatrox is fine. I liked old Aatrox better. I was a big fan of playing old Aatrox in the top lane. I thought you could poke with your E, CS effectively. You sort of became like a poor man's Tryndamere after that, where you could fight fight people 1v1 really well. You could team fight really well if you could not get CC'd. You could split push. He became a split push monster. He had a good, decent AP ratio. If you wanted to try that out, it's kind of fun. Um, so yeah, I liked old Aatrox better, especially with the interaction with the Rage Blade. He sort of had like a good laning phase, and he became a late game carry if you could carry that out. New Aatrox is fine. I don't think it keeps his identity, but people seem to have fun playing him. I'm not very good with him, but I don't have a problem playing against him, except for maybe with the crazy amounts of lifesteal now. Okay, Jarvan, they didn't really do anything to him. Kennen didn't do anything to him. Talked about Kog'Maw. Lee Sin's been the same forever. Akali, bad rework. It's so frustrating to play against her in the Shroud. You can't. Lots of your abilities will not go off even when she appears, so you can't click on her fast enough for the ability to hit her or for your auto to hit her. Um, and then even if like I play Udyr a lot, so I'll be in bear stance. She'll hit me with an attack or a series of attacks, and I'll stun her. But then she'll just go invisible in the cloak, in the shroud, and so I can't retaliate her abilities because she's invisible. So I think if she gets CC'd, she should be taken out of the shroud, taken out of invisibility. That'd make her much less annoying to play against, because at the moment she has so much mobility and so much option of not dying in that shroud that it's just not fun to play against. Nunu and Willump, I think they're more fun to play now with the snowball. They're probably pretty cancerous. I think they have one of the highest win rates on the preseason, but that's not really the champion design fault. That's the item's fault. Vi's been the same forever. Ezreal, it's fine. You can't really build him AP as easily as you used to before, but yeah. I mean, I'd never really liked that playstyle anyway. Oh, uh, something that I abused to play on a Smurf account was Runeglaive Ezreal, which was definitely busted, and it's good that they removed it, but I did have a lot of fun with that. I think an AP sort of poke style like that with an AoE option on his Q, even if it wasn't as strong as the Runeglaive, would be really interesting to give Ezreal back. Dr. Mundo is hardly changed. He's always had the same identity. Already talked about Gragas or Nectin, hardly changed. Teemo, the bouncing mushrooms are fun. I like it. That's all there is to say about that. Oh, being able to move in a bush even though you're invisible, that's good. Yeah. Uh, Riven, hardly changed. Wukong, um, he's the same character. I think the sort of dynamacy they gave to his clone is good. Um, yeah, nothing really to say about him. Kale, already talked about her. Blitzcrank hasn't changed. Mumu, not changed. Ziggs, the ability to break towers is kind of interesting. I don't play him, but I'm fine with his kit. Panth, I liked him better pre-rework. I think he felt more comfortable to play for me. Um, he seems a little bit clunky now. Maybe it's just I don't have the experience with him. Uh, but yeah, he ultimately he's fine. I don't really have too many problems with him. Lux didn't really have much change. Diana, I think in theory that moving her dash ability to her E is good. In practice, though, it still feels a little wrong to me, and it doesn't do as much damage. So I think it would just take a while for me to get used to the way her combos play out again. But ultimately, I think the rework of her is fine. Volibear, I really liked old Volibear. New Volibear is interesting, but he doesn't have the same feel to him as old Volibear did. Um, I have to play more of him. I've played a few games. I've lost almost every single time, despite doing okay in lane. I think there's a disconnect for me in how to play him late game. So I'm sure he's fine. It's just my problem. Ari hasn't changed much. Neither Singed. Malzahar Udyr hasn't changed much. They've buffed him, a little bit every here and there. I've always liked the buffs. I'm an Udyr main, so. um, Shaco hasn't changed. Yeah, okay, that covers everybody. So, thanks for watching. If you have any ideas of your own, I'm fine to hear them. As I said before, these are my subjective opinions, and they're definitely not well-informed ones in a lot of cases. But, yeah, see you on the next one.